Welcome to the Limitless Human Podcast. We are your hosts, Natalie
and Cassandra. The mission of this podcast is to help you to honor your human experience on your journey to living your limitless potential.
We record episodes every other Tuesday, and we would love it if you would rate our podcast, as well as follow us on Instagram and subscribe to us on YouTube at the Limitless Human Podcast.
Today, we're excited to be recording this episode in the midst of the eclipse season. So we're going to dive into that. And before we started recording today, I picked a card from the Golden Future Oracle deck. It's one of my newest decks. I don't even know if I've ever showed you this one, Natalie.
No, I was going to say, I don't know that at all. That's cool.
It's a cool, very high vibe deck. And I pulled a card and it said, planetary cleansing. Keep your space pure and clear. And look at the imagery on here.
There's a unicorn. No, it's a Pegasus. That's the first thing that I felt drawn to. Wow, it's beautiful.
Yeah. The fish, the dolphins underneath.
Is that a house crumbling?
There's lots going. Yeah. It looks like it. It almost looks even like a trash can. Doesn't it look like a trash can to you?
Yeah, kind of like there's like a almost as if there's a tornado that's pulling everything apart. But yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yet there's a rainbow coming from it, which I think is very interesting.
I know.
I'm sure we'll post this somewhere. And it was interesting because like when it came to this episode today, Natalie and I, when we record, we don't really pre-plan things very much. We create a lot of spaciousness to just allow what's meant to come through. And during this eclipse season, it's interesting. We were talking about how it's a very interesting energy. It's a purging energy. It's throwing out the metaphorical trash out of your field, out of your ways of being, out of the habits, all of that. But so a lot of people can like freak out when it's eclipse season, like hold on tight on this roller coaster, keep your hands and your arms in the vehicle at all times as you're going down this roller coaster of life. And it's all for our best. That's what my experience has been like, this week. Lots of things have activated within me. I don't know if it was the Moldavite. I don't know if it was this kind of massage that I had this week. I don't know if it's eclipse. It's probably all of it. And as Natalie and I were kind of catching up and sharing, it's interesting that this is the image that comes through of the rainbow coming out of the trash, right? There's so much beauty that comes from the messiness, the stinky trash, the releasing and the letting go, which is such an uncomfortable process. I was going really deep in it today. So I think it was interesting that the card came up this way. And yeah, I don't know. Wait, you want to speak to that, Natalie?
Yeah, I think that it's fascinating because perspective, it's all about perspective. And I know that you and I were talking about with eclipse season, a little bit that we were talking about ahead of time is something that I'm noticing is there appears to be two experiences people can have. It's not the only two experiences, but the ones that are really blatant that I'm noticing is the place where people are still really living by their conditioning, and those who are really moving towards their authenticity, and just how different that experience can be. And oftentimes there can be such a rub and conflict arises and it feels as though all is lost. And so when you're in a perspective of conditioning, there can be a woe is me, why is this happening to me, I'm a victim, and the bad things, and it's horrible and it's catastrophic. And then on the other hand, if you're moving more towards authenticity and you are really moving into your soul wisdom and connecting to your path that's most aligned to you, there may be a perspective of this is happening for me and there's wisdom here. There's an opportunity for me here. There's something that I can learn from and grow from. And this is epic. And I know we talked beforehand about the whole idea of this week being a gift. And I think this eclipse season can be, if you allow it, if you have the perspective, can be a gift of your ascension, your higher being, where you in your soul are desiring to go, and being willing to go through the muck, being willing to look at the messiness as beauty, right? I think that there's a phrase that's coming through that doesn't quite necessarily fit for this situation, but when we talk about trash and also to rainbows, there's the one person's trash is someone else's treasure, right? So
Mhm.
it is all about perspective, I really feel. And if we let it, this eclipse season can really move us in the direction of where we're meant to go.
Mhm. No, I love that. And I love that you pointed them out like side by side about the different perspectives. But I realize in the process of healing, it's often going to be both. You're going to have your like ego, the wounded versions of yourself that is like, this effing sucks. Like, and the negative self talk and the critics and all of that coming up. And then there's going to be like, the higher self version that's like, no, this is for the best. This is for your growth. Like, this is going to help you get to where you want to be. And as I'm sharing this, I'm seeing this image. Have you ever watched the Disney movie, The Emperor's New Groove?
Yes.
Natalie?
Yeah.
Yeah, so how Kronk has like the angel on one side and the little devil appearing one here, and they're having that inward conversation. I feel like that can be a part of everyone's healing journey at one point or the other. And it's interesting when we want to just like love and light it and we want to feel good all the time. And sometimes we just want to like get over the sticky stuff. Like I healed and was in the thick of some of the sticky stuff today. And I was just like, oh, I don't even want to be doing this. Like I felt myself almost procrastinating about kind of wanting to go through this today and create the spaciousness for it. And I think it's all a part of it. I feel like we have to go through the nasty stuff. We got to throw out the trash. Otherwise, it's going to stay in our house. It's going to be really smelly unless you tie up the bag and bring it outside to the corner where it belongs, right? So I think it's just an interesting space to be in. And I think it's all for the best because then you have so much cleanliness, right? It's talking about keeping your space pure and clear. To be a pure and clear channel for all that's meant to come through in your ascension into living into your limitless, you need to do some housekeeping on the way to keep your vessel open and clear and to be able to like fly like the Pegasus that was in the card. And whether we like it or not, I think it's a part of the process. Just like whether we like it or not, these eclipse seasons are going to come on. And whether we like it or not, the unexpected is just going to come up. I think it's all a part of the process for us achieving our limitless potential and living our potential is taking the time to go in the depths on the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that reminds me, I know that in our first season opener, last episode with the channel messages that came through the Akashic Records, we've been kind of unpacking it and talking about it a little bit before recording this. And one of the things that you had noticed when you were reconnecting to that message that came through both of us is the needing to go through. And I think that a lot of times, and with the conditioning, right, when we're looking at the conditioned part versus the higher self part, is the places in which with the conditioning part we want to avoid, and we want to try to push ourselves through and love and light it, right? That no, actually, in order to get to the magic, in order to get to the wisdom, in order to get to rise up, we need to go deep. We need to be willing to acknowledge the trash, look at it, make space for it, be able to recognize what's really going on, have accountability, have uh, honesty with ourselves, and then move forward with removing it. Most of the time, with conditioning, we just want to quickly get rid of it and then wonder why it's still stuck. And so, really, it's to get to where we really want to go with our wisdom and our elevation and our limitlessness is to get down and not avoid, look at it, experience it, go through it. So it's just reminding me of our last episode and where we are today and how we're processing this.
Mm-hmm. And allowing like the light at the end of the tunnel be a motivation for you, but not this sense of sprinting to the end of the tunnel to the light, like giving yourself the permission and the spaciousness to go through the vastness of human emotion. Because when you're talking about honoring the human experience, this is the human experience part of it, right? Is, hey, these experiences from childhood really triggered me and they're showing up in my adult life. And hey, this instance that has come up in different relationships that we're in is really triggering and conjuring up all these insecurities inside of us that we didn't consciously realize what we have. So like it's all the triggers, it's all the patterns, it's all the loops that can be uncovered if you create the spaciousness to even receive and become aware. Like it was interesting the past few days, I'm seeing how all of this, these little pieces and instances and triggers and patterns that have been coming up create this like spider web and this higher understanding when you take a step back and allow the big picture thinking to come in and being like, well, if we dismantle this, well, it's going to affect that and help clear up the cobwebs in our subconscious. Again, that clarity, that purity for things to unfold. So I think that's a part of it too, is giving yourself that permission to reflect and to go inward and to be curious when triggers come up, when you are showing up in relationships, when you're showing up in business and you're not feeling authentically yourself. You're feeling like there's some sort of disconnect, leaning into that curiosity of, where's this coming from? Is there like an instance from my past that this is kind of mirroring in me, and really giving yourself permission to put the pieces of the puzzle together so that way you can be able to dismantle it and release it fully.
Yeah, and something that I want to anchor in and really shed light on is the what you and I are currently going through in the eclipse is also something that I know a lot of people are going through. And I think particularly as spiritual entrepreneurs, there's this concept within our community and society that you have to quickly have the answers and also to share your wisdom. And so what we don't often give ourselves space for, and I think I love this light through the tunnel and not just like racing to the end, but really being intentional with our integration and our embodiment, is that we also don't have to rush to tell the story. We don't have to rush to express what we've learned, because it's not about expressing it while you're in it. I think that for there tends to be this belief that we have to have it all figured out quickly. And so then the interesting thing is that if I'm racing through to get through to the end light and the end of the tunnel, then that means I'm also carrying that energy through with racing through to express what it is that I experienced. And the whole entire process is just about slowing down. And so there's a reason why you and I are not sharing details today, because we're still in the eclipse. And there's still more to integrate and more to understand and more to be revealed. And we get to share our wisdom. And there's going to be a time and place for that where it feels the most embodied, where it feels we've really understood what's been going on. And I know a lot of times I want to share my story for validation. I want to share my story for understanding. I want to share my story for agreement and acceptance. And it's also okay to, because that's also an avoidance piece, is
Mm.
where can we, if we need support, right? If you're hiring a coach, you're hiring a mentor, you're hiring a therapist, and you need help processing it through, that's one thing. if you were sharing it as a way to give wisdom and to show that, see what I've done, I think that that's part of our societal thing, especially on social media, where it's like, see what I've done, see where I've gotten, see what I've learned. And that just waters down our experience, and it doesn't really, it's a fraction of our limitlessness. It's a fake version of it. And so it's also the wisdom of knowing when is the time to really open up and share with other people, and why are you doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, there's something about that wanted to come through.
Yeah, like the clarity of intention behind what it is that you're bringing forth in the divine time behind it. And that was a conversation that we had before recording too, of both of us are going through some big integrative pieces for our soul's growth right now, and it's like, well, we're not ready yet. And I think that that's again leading back to our mission of honoring our experiences that we have and the ones that are meant to be shared when they're meant to be shared. And I wanted to speak to the Moldavite from last week. So if you haven't listened to the episode, go check it out. Natalie brought these pieces of Moldavite, and she kind of did like a precautionary warning of, hey, this stuff conjures stuff up, but it's all for the best. And it helps me step into my priestess energy. And it's funny, in preparation for this episode, because we knew we were going to be unpacking parts of the Akashic records. It was funny. I was realizing in myself this, like, almost, okay, like, get ready for the ride that you're about to go on, because it's going to bring a lot to light. And it's just so interesting to see how I responded to it and how activating and powerful the experience was. So that was really interesting within the purpose of it, and how some experiences on the outside can be triggers for like a gift. Right. So it's like often in experiences when things are uncomfortable and this cleansing and decluttering and bringing trash to the corner, we want to point at the triggers and be like, F you, trigger. Why did you come up? Like, why did you conjure so much inside of me? And it's interesting when it comes to like victimizing self um, and looking at the external world and pointing fingers at the external world. Why did this happen to me? But again, it's bringing back into that perspective shift of, ooh, this is happening for me. And having the perspective of the big picture, being like, this is all happening for me, and having that higher understanding, and then giving yourself permission to go into the icky, sticky, subconscious things as a form of clearing and purging. Because when you think about throwing things to the trash, you got to have items in the trash. So you have to almost give the mic, is what my coach says, to this icky and sicky stuff that needs to be cleared, so you know what you're throwing out. So I think it's often too, I've had like mentors and people in the past that have just like used the quick fixes to like just shift and get back to the light. But I think there's something to be said about giving the microphone to these pieces that are meant to go curbside. So I think it's okay to do both and to not judge yourself, because it's interesting today when I was going through it, that avoidant part of me being like, like, this isn't true. And like the ping pong, like the cronk, either side that was happening in front of me. So I wanted to highlight that again of, it's okay for the sake of healing to be in that icky stuff and to take the pieces of garbage and to throw it in the trash can. But when it becomes this pattern of when victimization, and you just stay in that cycle and that pattern in that whirlpool, when that happens, that's often when we need to keep ourselves accountable and really lean extra into, why is this happening for me instead of to me.
Well, I love that you're bringing this up, because a couple of things that come to mind. I mean, number one, Moldavite, I usually try to give a warning, especially if people haven't used it before or aren't that familiar with it. It packs a punch. And whenever it calls to me, And that was what happened last episode, is that, I'm sitting here with you, and before we hit record, I was like, I could hear them. I was like, hey, Cassandra, just want to let you know, and are you okay with it? Because informed consent is important when it comes to Moldavite. And I know anytime I use it, it's going to pull stuff up. And it's fascinating too, because I just came from a massage earlier today, and every time I work with my masseuse, my massage therapist, I end up pointing things out to her, and then she'll get into it, and I'm like, why did I do that? Like, why did I tell you? Because they're painful, right? They're really painful. And yet there's a part of me that knows I need you to get in there. I need you to work on that. But the minute she does, I regret it, right? And it's that my human part of like, okay, I changed my mind, never mind, like, forget it. And I think that that's really common for us, is that we know we want to have healing experiences. We want to get at the things that we have limited ourselves with. And then when the pain comes, it's like, oh, no, I take it back. And so I think that happens too with the universe, where we'll ask for things, right? We want things and we manifest things. And then the universe shows up with, okay, well, to have that, then we need to address this. And it's like, oh, no, I take it back. Forget it. Never mind. I don't want that. And yet that is how you get to the goal. That's how you get to all the magic and the limitlessness, is that all the things that have been, and that we have each on an accountability place, that we have put onto ourselves, it hasn't felt good while you've been experiencing it. And so it's not going to necessarily feel good when you release it, when you put it in the trash. There's still going to be either that emotional or physical or energetic rub. And it's taking ownership of that. I think that's really important, is that, yeah, this is what I want. And because this is what I want, the willingness to experience the uncomfortability while getting to where you want to go. And Moldavite is a great tool for all of that. And one plug real quick before we move off of Moldavite. Last episode, I mistakenly said that Moldavite came from Russia, and it didn't. It doesn't. It was a meteorite that crashed in the Czech Republic. Is the majority. There's a couple of other places, but the majority of Moldavite comes from the Czech Republic, which is not anywhere near Russia. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thanks for clarifying. Yeah. Yeah. I think as we've unfolded and discussed today, the biggest takeaway, and that goes back to our mission so beautifully, is it has to be both. You have to honor your human experience on your journey to living your limitless potential. And limitless potential, to me, when I'm living my limitless potential, and I'm sure we'll do a whole episode about this, but it's like when I'm totally in tune with my higher self, and I'm embodying my soul's wisdom, and I'm being fully and authentically me. And on the journey to get there, you have to deal with the stuff that's not you. That's not your truth. Because often all this icky and sicky stuff is not the truth. It's just this wounded version of you. It's just your ego's perception of you to try and keep you safe. So I think that it's important to highlight and ground into, it's okay to have both. You don't always have to be a true embodiment of your higher self. It's okay to create that spaciousness to heal and to go into the depths.
And also too, like there's, while you are connected in alignment with your highest self, you're still human. And I think that it's easy for us to forget that. It's the same thing as, oh, once I'm healed, then I will get to the destination that I think I'm supposed to get to, and then that'll be it. And it's a constant remembrance for me, reminding my human that, no, this is healing. It's an active thing. And I think I said this to a client recently, even yesterday, that I will be healing until the day I die. And that it is a constant journey. And so, though I may be aligned with my highest self, I'm also going to have my human that's going to show up. And so it's this dance between where the two meld together. And There may be times where I get kicked out completely and I'm completely in my human, and other times where I might be more completely in my highest self, and then finding the place in between. And it's in the times when you're in your human, that's not wrong and that's not bad.
Mhm.
And I think that's where, in our terms of our mission with the honoring the human, is that that is a very vital piece. This is, your human is a very vital piece to your experience. And it isn't always just about chasing to your highest self. It's not always about chasing to soul alignment and soul purpose. Like, being your human is soul purpose. Uh, so yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I've heard before that we're spiritual beings going through a human experience. So it's interesting when you think
On
about
purpose.
that, taking back to our pardon? What'd you say? I missed
I said
that.
on purpose.
Yeah,
You said
exactly. And like,
we're a spiritual. Oh, sorry. Are we like? Is there a delay?
no, no,
Oh,
no, you're good. Go.
yeah. You had said a spiritual being having a human experience, and I added on purpose.
Yeah. No, I love it. No, I love that. And it's interesting because we're talking about living a limitless potential, which is so in touch with the spiritual realm by honoring like our humans. So it's kind of interesting how those two concepts are opposite, but yet so interconnected as a part of it.
Yin and yang.
It's all a matter of perspective.
Mhm.
Yeah, cool. I want to ask you before maybe we get to a close, Natalie, what are your favorite as a therapist, as a healer, as a shamanic priestess, and all the beautiful things that you live as your limitless self? What are your favorite cleansing tools that you use when you're in a season of something like an eclipse season or in the depths of your healing?
That's a really good question, and I would love to hear your answer too. Um, I think for me, there's a couple of things I love to do. I love baths. And in taking a bath, I love to energetically charge it. I do a lot of Reiki, so charging the water. And then before I actually, like, as I'm done with the bath, and I let the water go all the way out while I'm still in the bath. I know a lot of people who do this, and I was like, oh, other people do this too. But so letting it actually, so not stepping out while the water is leaving, but actually being in the water and letting it completely go down the drain while you're still in the bathtub, I feel is a really great completion of releasing and cleansing. Another thing that I really love is, I mean, I'll do smoke. I'll usually use Palo Santo or a sage bundle that I, uh, put together from my own sage herbs in the garden. But another thing that I will attempt to do, if and when at all possible, is, and I do this a lot in the summertime. I live in, a place where it's like really cold in the winter, so this may not happen. But getting my feet out on the ground, and particularly in a rainstorm, is just letting
Hmm.
myself get drenched. And so for me, that when I went through the whole tropical storm hurricane experience, that was a huge cleansing. There was a lot of energy, and I'm just noticing my hands are moving right now. There's a lot of me moving the energy. That was a very magnificent, once in a lifetime kind of cleansing experience. But anything nature that I can try to get in, especially with water, or just my own energy movement, or things that I do. What about
Hmm.
you?
It's interesting that you said about like the water completely leaving the bath and inspiring me to have a bath. I haven't had one in a while. In this season, I think a lot of just like journal venting. I don't know if it's the manifestor informing part of me, but just like writing it all down and just imagining that it's leaving my head and my field and writing on the page. Um, Also shaking lately. I've been feeling energy move, and I've been more in tune with my body since I've been kind of getting more into working out and moving my body. I feel when the energy is stuck. So I've really found like shaking has been really helpful for me. And of course, meditation. That's always a good one of my favorites. I love to connect with the sun. Like you, being in Canada, it might be cold sometimes, but even just tuning into the nature of like the true sun and just allowing like the light, imagine the light moving through me and cleansing and like burning away and releasing all that just meant to be let go of. It's been really helpful for me.
I love that. The shaking also reminds me dance is really great. I like to dance, and the body movement. I find that like with my, especially with my arms, body movement is really helpful. So I love that.
Mhm. Cool. I feel pretty complete. How about
Well,
you,
if you're tuning
Natalie?
in, yes. I was just going to say, whoever's listening, if you're tuning in, if you want to come onto our Instagram page, and when we post about this episode, if you want to comment what, or even on the podcast episode itself, if you on your favorite podcasting platform, if you want to let us know what your favorite cleansing activity is, we'd love to hear that.
Yes, definitely. Sounds good. Well, I want to thank you all for listening and watching today. If you're not already following us on Instagram or subscribe to YouTube, check us out at the Limitless Human Podcast.
And if this really resonated with you, we'd love for you to rate and review this episode and share with anyone that you think might also benefit from hearing.
Thank you for watching and listening. Bye.